Hi, and welcome to the Kish Podcast. I'm Emer McCormack.
And I'm Tony Scott.
Tony, who have we got coming up on the show this week?
Well, this week's guest had a very big life-changing experience, and it completely turned his life upside down, and probably for the better as well.
Right.
Yes, this week's guest is none other than producer, playwright and actor David Gilna.
And we started off by asking, who is David Gilna?
I'm a playwright, performer and producer from Swords, County Dublin.
Was that the kind of stuff you did growing up? Was performing part of the family?
Performing wasn't part of the family, but my family is, I would say, great crack. My mother comes from a very big family, and my parents always hosted parties growing up as a child, so I was always surrounded by people and entertainment, but nobody in the family had any involvement in the entertainment industry. But my parents loved music, they loved film, they loved art, so I was kind of growing up, I was kind of always around, entertainment and people. But I started out just pretty much acting the fool and clown, and joking, laughing, and imitating people I'd see on television.
A typical messer.
Yeah, just like a joker. I just love to make people laugh. I think if I was to really stem, it was just to make people laugh. I kind of got a kick out of that. I got something from it from an early age. No matter who the audience was my nana or my great aunties and uncles, it was just the idea to perform in front of people. And there was a talent competition. The Brackenstown talent competition is where I went to primary school. And me and a group of friends, we decided that we'd do a mimic on the river dance. And this is how I got as they say, the break into the industry. I got the short straw, and I got to dress up as Jean Butler.
Do you have the legs?
And, shot off the legs with my blonde curly hair, ringlets, and we won the competition. And it was just really us pretending. We couldn't Irish dance, by the way, none of us. And we just did this whole mimic on the river dance, and we just kind of captured a feeling or a movement about these four idiots from the parish, and it just made people laugh. And that was the moment that I just was performing in front of a live audience, and I loved it.
And when you say that was like your break, were you noticed then? Did a talent spotter find you?
There was a guy called Bill Keating from RTE, and he was the judge, and he started to give myself and Stephen real advice about the industry, about career paths, and we didn't realise how important Bill was in his advice. But myself and Stephen Russell at the time, my best friend, we went on from doing that talent competition to join a place called the National Performing Arts School, which is ran by two of my mentors, Jill Doyle and Eamon Farrell, and they kind of gave us a home, a place to learn about dancing, drama, singing, and it wasn't about professional, it was just about kids' escapism, having fun in this magical place in the factory on Barrow Street, whether it was like your favourite artist recorded in the studio, people you'd recognise off the television, and it was like dingy and damp, but it just had this real charisma to it. And then Stephen and I started to pick up voiceover work or commercials or spots on feature films, and at the time we were at the age of 12, so
wow.
We didn't really think anything of it. It was just a place we went to on the weekends, and then sometimes our parents would take us out of school and we'd do a voiceover or we go on a set. And to be honest with you, we didn't think anything of that until we were 16, and that's what it was 16 when I started to realise, okay, this is something. And I had this great teacher in Closhtacolm called Paul O'Rourke. He's one of the, you meet people in your life, as an artist, you always meet people in your life who inspire you, great mentors. And Paul was one of them. And he knew that I did drama, musical theatre in town, in the city centre. And he approached me that he wanted to put on the first ever musical in the Christian Brothers School. And would I play the lead? Would I mind getting the stick? And I was like, not at all. I said, I would love it. And he created this show, and it was the first time a Christian Brothers school had put on a musical. Now, he would have got massive stick off a lot of teachers. He wouldn't have got support in the staff room by certain members. But this, for us, and for this unity of people, this band of people, And then he brought in the local girls' school as well to match the parts. And I think anybody involved in that production, it kind of was just kind of a life-changing moment that people went, wow. Whether you were a stage manager or in the band or fixing the lights or the sound, you felt like, okay, this is pretty rock and roll. This is kind of a community aspect from people of all walks of life come together to create a show for the people. That was a magic moment.
And you say, like, teachers would have got a bit of stick. Is it because back then that particular type of school wasn't open to boys doing musicals or creative things?
Yeah, I would say there's the people like that in all walks of life, you know. For me, creativity is so important. You got to think this was a Christian Brothers school, and he wanted to put on a musical, you know. So there would have been backlash against that. But to me, art is so liberating and such an amazing place to people to express themselves, whether or not to do it professionally or whether or not to do it as a hobby. I think it's so important for the mind. So yeah, Paul was just inspirational didn't care what people thought, and he supported people, and that was a kind of real moment in my career that I thought, wow, this is excellent. This is me saying this is who I am and this is what I love. And we put on a great show. Great memories, actually, looking back.
So you did that. You went through secondary school. Was the next step like secondary school, college to study theatre?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I from 16 onwards, I knew that this is what I was going to study. And I applied for all college courses regards theatre studies. And I got accepted into 4 and I got accepted into Trinity, and my parents were devastated because I decided to go to Coolock because my friends were there in Closhatulik. True story.
I nearly went there.
Yeah, and it was an amazing place, and a place where I got to meet a woman called Marie Tierney. She was a set designer, and I loved carpentry. And I thought I'd never study something like carpentry through theatre studies. And I didn't even know that kind of existed, that world. And she actually was the reason why I got offered my first job out of college, was through me Tierney, because she was my set design teacher. And she was like, do you want a gig? And I was like, yeah. Doing what? And she's like, being an assistant stage manager. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. So from being purely theatre studies was my life, and that's all I wanted to do was act on stage. And then all of a sudden, Marie opened up my life to a different world. So from the age of 18, I started to really explore different avenues of creativity in the industry, which was amazing.
So what year did you finish in Closhatulik?
Well, this is what happened. Well, between my college years, I was offered a three deal, like a 3-picture deal in the States. And I went on a J1 visa to Boston.
So this is where the action starts.
Yeah, So basically, met all agents and people, and I signed this small 3-picture deal with a studio. And then 2 days later, on a J1 visa, this was the moment that changed my outlook on life and my whole philosophy in life and how I actually became a writer. I was hit by lightning. On a balcony in South Boston in 2004.
I love how you're so casual about it. I was hit by lightning.
I think I have to be, because I can talk about it so openly and honestly, and no matter what I do in my life, no matter what I achieve, lightning will always be the topic of conversation because it's people's fascination with the afterlife. Mm-hmm. It's not about me per se, it's about the afterlife. It's about what's next. So technically, I died for 3 minutes and 42 seconds. I was pronounced dead, and my heart had stopped. And then all of a sudden, my heart started to beat again after 3 minutes.
Describe what? I don't know if you even know what happens during those 3 minutes. Like, do you have any recollection?
I remember looking at myself in an ICU ward, thinking, "Okay, that's me, and I'm not there anymore. So where am I going next?"
So, did you think that was it?
Yeah, I thought I was gone on to the next world, whatever that is, whatever you believe in, whatever your religious beliefs are, or your spiritual beliefs. I was leaving this place we call planet Earth.
So did you think, David, when that was happening to you, did anything physically happen to you, or, you obviously got hit by lightning, like, did it hurt?
Oh, did it hurt? I hurt like hell. I hurt like a mother. I won't use the second part of that expression, but I've never felt pain like it. Literally, your skin burns from the inside out. So my body is scarred. So, you know, you can check it online, the facts about lightning, but like it's as hot as the surface as the sun. It's like it came through my right hand and earthed out of my left foot. So I had no balance, because your balance is in your hearing and your feet. Obviously my feet are completely torn apart. I had burned and lacerations in different parts of my body. And then obviously my nervous system was massively affected because of the amount of electricity that passed through my body. So then I had real sensitivity issues.
And obviously, like, it went through your spine if it went from one side to the other.
Yeah, right to the left. And I had no movement. When I woke, I was paralysed from the neck down. I was told I'd never walk again. And then it became my right hand of my body. My right side of my body was paralysed. Left hand side started to move. And then a few days later, it was paralysed completely again from the neck down. And then it started to come back together in different parts. And I still have sensitivity issues, as in hot and cold sometimes, or pain.
And were you alone? Were you alone when it happened, or was it somebody there?
I was on my own on a balcony on a building, and a few of the builders were a few doors down the road. And then they came to, and funny enough, I actually didn't go to a hospital straight away. I went back to my J1 house with my friends.
No way.
Yeah, so I was actually lifted up. The lads brought me 6 cans of beer, gave me a smoke, and they're like, yeah, because literally hit by lightning, boom, frazzled. Are you okay? They picked me up, brought me into the Jeep, brought me back to my place, sat me down.
So you were conscious?
I was conscious, yeah. I woke up, I don't know how many minutes later, and I think I flew about 6 or 7 feet back. And then when I got back to my apartment, and one of the girls went to take off my boots, and she could see that my boots were completely fried, they brought me straight to the hospital. So yeah, there was a moment of don't think nobody really knew what was going on. Just like maybe it was just an accident on a building site, and then I think my body was just in shock, and the heart was just racing to stay alive. And then I started to think about all the things that I wanted to say to people who I loved in my life. I started to realise things that I hadn't achieved yet, and I was only 18 at the time. And then my lights went out. So I think I was just trying to rearrange everything in my brain to get messages that I needed to say to certain people at certain times, because I was in a different time zone. But the one thing I can relate to anybody is that I didn't want my parents to get a phone call at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when there was no way they could get to America. So I was very conscious that they only got a phone call at a certain time in the morning. I think that was one of my last things I said to my best friend, to say, ring them at 7 in the morning. Don't do anything as foolish as ringing them at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they're trapped. That guilt of a parent that their child is away. I didn't want to feel that guilt, should I say, upon me, not upon them.
And were you afraid?
I was only afraid once. I was afraid on the third day. I'll never forget. It's when I started to feel the energy leave my body. So when I said to the nurse, because she put her hands on my foot, and I must have been ice cold, and I could just tell by her reaction that, like, one, I couldn't feel her hand, but two, I could just see the eyes, or the portal to the soul, and I just went, okay, this is not good. And that's when I started to panic and scream. I think they had to sedate me, and then I woke back up again, and then things started to move. But it was the third night. I think maybe I thought that was it for me, and then I kind of remember just praying, saying, oh, like, I'm just so young, like, just please give me one more chance, whoever you are. I just don't want to go to the next world. And then I'll always remember that first breath I took back into this world. When people talk about that, that's something that will stay with me. That first breath when you open up your eyes and you're in an ICU ward and you think, okay, I'm still here. Whew,
And were your parents over with you at this stage, like 3 days later?
Yeah, my parents came over, and my family, and because I was given my last rites, so.
Oh my God! Really?
Yeah, what they went through was just horrific, and I remember my travel insurance. I took a €50. Had to use a travel insurance, which wasn't worth anything, by the way, just for J1 students going forward. There's been a few problems with use it over the years, but I took out a €50 insurance policy on the family policy with VHI. With VHI. I was going to say VH1, video music on display. And didn't they send me a bunch of flowers? And they're like, we've never had anyone hit by lightning before. I was like, that's great.
That sounds just like their current advertising.
Yeah, they literally didn't want me to. They would have liked if I died because of the money I cost them, but they pay for everything. If you want to talk about numbers, they were not happy that I was survived because like 14 specialists in the States, you know what I mean? I'd be paying it back for the rest of my life. But literally everything was paid for. My rehab.
Aren't you lucky though? Because imagine you were a US citizen and the healthcare they have to pay.
Let me tell you this: they wouldn't have accepted me until I was in some holding room, I believe, in the hospital until they found out I had insurance. I know that.
Oh my
much for sure.
God!
Oh
really?
yeah, oh yeah.
That's awful.
I wouldn't be getting all that treatment if I didn't have insurance.
I was reading up, but it's like 1 in 1,042,000 of being struck by lightning or something like that, is it?
Yeah, it's like the numbers are just astonishing. But like that, I had a problem talking to people and dealing with people. So someone who was a showman his whole life and performing for people since an early age to become a recluse. And a specialist said to me, here's a pen, here's a paper, write down everything. So I use writing as a form of therapy to go through the process that I went through, the places that I went through. So I wrote everybody in my life a letter to let them know how much I loved them and what they meant to me at that Christmas. And that was probably my first experience with writing. And I wanted to tell everybody what they meant to me in my life at that point. And then I just started to write from that point. I write every day, pen and paper.
So your first play was it 5 nights?
Yeah, 5 nights. So basically, I always say to people, anybody out there who'd like to write or TV, theatre, film, just start writing. Like, just pick up a pen and paper and start every day. That's the whole process. But I believe that everybody has a story to tell in them, and you'll always learn and have great mentors. But 5 nights really was. So, like, I was acting. I was quite lucky. Back in those days, you used to get long contracts with Michael Scott and Shay Healy. So you tour different shows and plays. So I got to tour around Ireland, and 32 counties, all the amazing venues, doing different styles of plays. So I thought, actually, I learned from watching these great writers and directors produce plays and shows, and I was acting in them. And then because I was writing every day, I was like, I'd like to do something like this. So I put together, I would say, pieces of a play, got my friends together and like traveling players. And I think at the time, there was like 16 people in the play. And if you're starting out, never do that because you won't make any money. But we came together and we put the play on in the Samuel Beckett, and a few theatre heads went and they could see something in it. There was something there. And then we transferred to the new theatre in Temple Bar. And then I had an encounter with an incredible man, a guy called Charles O'Brien, backstage at the Late Late Show. And he was the head of marketing for Circus Ireland and Fawcett Circus. And he said, have I ever worked with the circus before? And I was like, no. And he's like, have you ever heard of the Arts Council before? And I was like, nada. And he's like, come with me, my dear boy. And we took me for a pint. And I ended up going on tour with the National Circus Fawcett's. And we created a thing called Theatre on the Big Top, where we put plays and shows, like travelling players, like from centuries ago. Oh. And then I had a meeting with the late, great Johnny Reynolds of Electric Picnic in a treehouse in Stradbally with Charles. And I was the first play to be staged at Electric Picnic at the festival. And Charles has been a friend of mine and advisor ever since. And we've been performing plays and shows with underneath the big top. Because our philosophy was that just because you couldn't afford to go to the Abbey or the Gate, we could bring theatre to you. So that was like the 5 nights experience, was a group of players not knowing what they were doing. And I had an encounter with someone who's now become a great mentor, in Charles O'Brien, and the idea about event management and using a tent as a venue, and all these incredible ventures I've had with circus, and meeting people like Johnny Reynolds, who was like a real doer and goer and a great vision. So that was like the first, I would call it a workshop. And then I met a guy, another great mentor, was a guy called Ray Yates. Ray Yates is now the head of the arts in Dublin City Council, but at the time he was running a place. He was the artistic director of the Axis in Ballymun. And when we were talking about when I was in Closh the Dúlig, my first gig outside of college with Marie Tierney building sets was in a play that Ray directed for a guy called Dermot Bulger. So I was washing all the cast clothes and washing down the sets and building sets, and I got to see Ray work as a director when I was this young assistant stage manager. And then they gave me a place and a home in the Axis. And then Ray directed the play. And at the time, I had no confidence in my writing. And a woman called Bridget DeCourcy, incredible woman called Bridget DeCourcy, who runs Fair City, came to see the play. And she said, "Are you the writer?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "Why didn't you put your name on the play?" I said, I don't consider myself a writer because I didn't train. And then she offered me a job in television.
That's amazing. And David, how does one go and write a play? How does it all come together?
Yeah, so now it's a bit more structured, but at the time I was just learning I've been writing plays for 12 years. What it is write what you want to write and be true to your voice. Any writer out there, maybe I was, how I spoke or my dialect or the type of language that I speak anyway, and the different expressions that I have and sayings, maybe I wasn't confident in my own voice and the own stories that I want to tell. So first of all, you have to believe in your own voice and then tell a story that you want to tell, no matter what it is, because the passion and drive has to come from your heart and your soul. So anything that I've ever want to write or intend to write, I have to believe in it and I have to be true to my voice. So the first thing literally is we all start, no matter what industry we are working in, we all start off on the blank page. I love the blank page because the blank page gives me hope. And the idea is to create ideas and stems of stories that I want to tell. So that's the first part. What story do you want to tell? Mm-hmm. And then the second part really is, step outline that journey, that vision, and Donald Shields is another fantastic guy. He's a great producer. Gave me a great piece of advice where he says, don't forget to write for your audience, People are always worried about artistic merit and reviews and X, Y, and Z. No. Write for the people who come see your shows, write for people who, pay tickets to give you a career. And that was really made me think, oh, okay, that was interesting, Some people write plays for the sake of them, or others are thinking about more career orientated. But it's the pen and paper, the story that you want to tell, and then a step outline to because sometimes if you're just staring at a page and you haven't got the full layout of a roadmap in front of you, you could go down potholes. So I just say write and don't edit, because people starting out have a tendency to write and then they'll come back and edit it. Don't do that. Just let it write out for a few days and then come back to the edit, Let it just flow naturally, because we all will cringe at some of the stuff maybe we created the night before.
And do you think that you probably have a natural flair for it? The fact that you did pick up that pen and paper and start writing, and, the fact that somebody from RT who writes Fair City spotted that in you.
Maybe.
Do you think...
Maybe, because it's got to do with confidence. I'm only confident now in my ability as a writer. And even every commission I've got before then, or every break I've had or idea I've sold, my confidence wasn't there. And now I'm very confident in my own ability, because I've built up this loyal following of people who get my work and get me. And they will say to me, "David, hated your last play, but I love this play. Will you write another thing about 1916? So I was engaging with people who were coming to see my shows, from the venue that I had 20 people to the castle that I had 1,000 people. I'm a very personal person, and that's where I've got great confidence now in the stuff that I want to write and the stories that I want to tell. And my agent gave me a great piece of advice. I was really worried for the 1916 commemorations for the centenary year. I was commissioned for my first commission as a playwright, and I was worried that, because there was a lot of pressure on me, that I kind of got to this stepping stone. And she says, "David, one day you're going to write a shit play, but you can still write a play." And I went, "Oh, I get now." I didn't get it at the time, but I get it now. Is that you can write. Sometime you'll come up with a great marketing slogan or a great campaign or a great idea for a sting of commercials. Doesn't mean you can't come up with them. Some will be a hit, some will be a miss, and that's the kind of, just you take that on the chin, I think, as a content creative, maybe,
I have a friend who I've known for about 5-6 years, and like you, he's a young guy, he's a playwright, and it's not a world that I ever knew before I knew him. And he'd be staying up until all hours, putting his life into his next creation, as I imagine you do. And I imagine, though, you have to have some sort of thick skin for the critics out there?
My latest commission is called Back in the Parish, okay? And it's about returning home. That's the ethos. No matter where you are in the world, it's about returning home to a place maybe you never thought you'd return to.
That's my story right now.
Yeah, so we can all relate to that. Returning back to your hometown, what does that feel like? And did you ever think you'd come back? Did you ever think you'd live in Ireland? And I wrote this piece on critiques and reviewers. I am open for anyone to come see my play and tell me what they think, to publish what they think, to write a review what they think. Because the idea is, in my head as a writer, this is the best play it can be, and I won't let the actors leave that rehearsal room until we all believe, from the lighting designer to the production manager to the actors, this is the best play that it can be. And then I'll listen to what they have to say to me. It won't change my feeling on the play, but everyone has the right to opinion, because when you're out in the arts, or you're a performer or writer, you're putting yourself out to the public, so you are going to be critiqued or reviewed. You just take it on the chin. I always get the reason why I'm getting back to the point was I have a point where I'm angry at artists who give out about reviewers that don't like their work. So are you telling me you're just going to be a performer and everyone's going to love you? That's not life. You know what I mean? And sorry, that's a bit raw. I'm going on a rant here, but that was the idea: is that you have to be open to all critiques if you're putting yourself out there in the public eye. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think that's the same for everything, like business as well, and politics and music. Everyone will get criticised.
And look, I love politics, and I love the arts, and I just love to create, because I've had a lot of time to reflect right now about why it is that I do what I do and why I'll still do it. And to be honest with you, is I love to put on a show, and I love to create a world where people can connect to my words and connect to emotions. So I don't like to tell people why I wrote the play, or I don't like to tell people what that character's about. I'd like someone to say, oh, that reminds me of X, or is that about Y? Because when you write a play and people know you, people think it's about them or their friend. Because I'm a creature of habit, so I'd write in the same pubs and the same coffee shop all the time. So people would say, that's Mick, isn't it? Or that's about me. And I let them believe what they want to believe, you know, the kind of way. I'm not going to say, no, it's not. But people and places inspire me. I just love language, and I love how people interact with each other, the good and bad of society. And it's my job really to look and see and to create, you know, truth in a sense, you know, push questions maybe that people don't want to answer. One of my plays, My Bedsit Window, really honed in on, you know, depression and suicide. I think that was really important, that how the arts can, as an artist, you give everything and you're always kind of on the breadline. And right now with the arts sector battling, like, are we a business? Does the government think that we are crucial? How would everyone got through quarantine if we didn't have music, playwrights, poets? And if there's an event, I'm there to take a picture for a press call for the press. But in times of need, are the artists forgotten about? Now, these are all side topics, so don't get me wrong, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But the idea is, for me, I had to reflect and say, no, I'll always create, because I love to put on a show. I love to connect with people, and that, no matter what the art form, whether it's, you know, TV, film, theatre, because reality of this time capsule that we're living in now, theatre won't happen for the next 2 years, in my opinion. And so you just have to kind of think of ways around that until that industry restarts itself or reboots.
Innovate and change.
Beautiful.
And adapt.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's something, I suppose, that we all have had to learn how to do in every walks of life, from parents minding children at home now to, you know, obviously the schools and everything closing. Your ability to be able to adapt and change defines you as a person, who I believe going forward, because you have to. I suppose what I'm really interested in from the outside, looking at plays, watching movies, going to theatre, whatever the case may be, I think the Irish, now you can tell me if you think I'm wrong or right or wrong, have a great way in being able to tell a story, and it's something very unique. And I suppose in some ways is probably a reason as to why Irish playwrights have been so successful all over the world. What do you think?
100%, Emer. I lived abroad for 10 years, and you can't beat the crack of the Irish people. Genuinely, we are just we're natural storytellers. We are tribal people. We're connected to the land, to our past, to our history, and we just have this natural ability to be able to tell stories. And I think there's a storyteller in every family or every family unit in this country. And I think, yeah, we do have a natural skill set. I think it's born into our DNA. And I had a moment an amazing moment for me. I was supposed to be on tour for the year with my new show, and I was supposed to go away on March 18th, and obviously cancelled for COVID-19. And chain on effect, they had a reading of one of my plays, My Bedsit Window, in New York on Tuesday, hosted by a guy called Malachy McCourt and the Irish American writers and actors community. And I was very nervous because I wrote this play 7 years ago, how people would view me or how people would see the play. But I got to listen to an Irish American audience, hear my language and hear talking about growing up in Fingal. And I got unbelievable feedback because the play is going to go to New York. This would be my first introduction, let's say, to an American audience with my work as a playwright. Wow. But I had this beautiful moment with Malachy McCourt, an amazing actor and writer, and he started to tell me all these tales about him and Richard Harris and what they used to get up to. And there's a section in my play I dedicate to Richard Harris. And I just had this moment of, I want to be someone like him in the next 40 years. That he's just given me this nod of approval, this confidence that he really enjoyed my play. That this Irish connection, that lifted my spirits like so much to be able to have this, via Zoom, by the way, and to hear my play being read out, but to have this moment with Malachy during the week was just, because I always say it's very easy just to give back, to help people, to just give people a voice or to support people, like, and the difference that can have on someone's career. Like, I had some great mentors, and I really think, as you say, no matter what the career path is, it's just to give back to that next generation, or whatever the age may be. It's just to say, here, I was once where you were, listen to this, do this, or change that. And I think that's the Irish have a great knack of kind of, getting their hands dirty, to kind of.
That's really interesting that you said that, because we interviewed Mary Lou MacDonald there last week, myself and Tony, and she used the expression of leaving the ladder behind you and help somebody else up that's coming up. So it's interesting that you share the same philosophy in effect,
Without 100%, because how can I move on in my career if I don't help people who help me? And I always say to people, look, standing here and I can name all the things I've achieved and all the commissions, right? But I'll always tell you about all the bad things and all the hard things. But I will thank all the people who helped me, who gave me advice, who gave me a commission, who gave me some funding, who got me a gig. These people are inspirational in my life. And I always say the art it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You know what I mean? You're in it for life. And these people that you worked with 15 years ago will come back into your life down the tracks. And so, yeah, always give the hand. And I facilitate drama. I've always taught. I've always done workshops, because to me, not only when I teaching children or a drama or directing a children's piece, they are giving me so much because of their imagination and their ideas. And as a writer, or as someone who's a creative writer, to hear the child's imagination is fascinating, to explore that innocence and the fun. And I think sometimes that dies inside us as we grow up, and it's to hold on to imagination. And I was doing a workshop, it was in the National in London, and John Cleese said something that stuck with me. He said, what's the most important thing as a performer or as an actor? And he said, imagination. You have to train that imagination. I was like, okay, I didn't understand at the time, but now I got what he meant, as an actor or it's your imagination, whether you're behind a green screen or in a theatre that holds 50 or 2,000 people, it's this great world of pretend.
You mentioned about, John Cleese giving you advice like that, and someone like him who is adored by millions and millions of people, both working in the sector and just his audience and viewers. You were in London and working, and you were saying you got lots of great mentors, but something happened with Kevin Spacey, and we all know the allegations that have been made in recent years. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, geez, yeah. This is a fantastic point to bring up. And it's how, let's say, the media can change an angle on something. I ran 4 pubs in London, 4 of the busiest pubs in London in Waterloo. I'd met Kevin loads of times. I've met every famous actor. When I was running 4 of the busiest pubs in the London district, and Kevin Spacey had signed posters for my plays, and he'd signed autographs. So in my play, My Bedsit Window, I wrote a piece about Kevin Spacey and all these producers, things that I saw, not as an actor or not as a writer, but as I saw as a guy who ran 4 pubs waiting for my break to happen in London.
Yeah.
And when the play was on, it was reviewed by everybody. And I wrote that play in December 2013. And then it had a revival in 2017. And then people were like, oh, wait a second. This guy wrote about Kevin Spacey. He wrote about Harvey Weinstein. Nobody cared 7 years ago that I wrote about this, that it was staged. It was reviewed. It was kind of just laughed at. So the whole that was
why do you think it was laughed at back then?
Who knows? It's not my place to say. I wrote about it, and people seen it, and people laughed about it. The idea for me was, did Kevin Spacey like to buy attractive guys alcohol? Yes. Is that a crime? No. Did I write about it? Yes. And to me, it was very fascinating to see, did people still work with him? Did people use his power, his contacts? Yes. So don't forget, people think barmen or people who work in the hospitality sector, they haven't got eyes or ears. You know what I mean? So you can't look at me as a playwright, as a performer. You have to look at me as a guy who was running a pub. You know,
they're usually the only sober ones on a night out.
Exactly. So that's what I wrote about. What I saw that what happened in the pubs in London, and that's all it was in the piece. But when the play was on in 2014, nobody cared. Nobody cared. I wrote about producers who were predators. I wrote about it. Predators who would take advantage of the innocent, or take advantage of people coming out of 4 years of Lane or RADA. I saw it with my own eyes.
Trying to make it big.
Yeah, I saw it with my own eyes. I was quite lucky that I'd sold the rights to my plays to be adapted into feature films. And that's when I learned it was a business. And I call them cappuccino directors or producers, people who talk the loudest in the room, but also people who worked with these people and saw these things, what they did, and they turned a blind eye, and now they pretend that they didn't have any involvement in it. And by the way, it happens over here too. People just don't speak about it as much. We are a nation who don't really like whistleblowers, are we? If you look at our own past and our own history. So I think a lot of people were taking funding and were just turning a blind eye. And now they're going on like they're great martyrs. So as a playwright, I can write about that because I have to write about what's around me. So yeah, I always find that interesting, you know. People saw, they just turned a blind eye.
It's an interesting one. And you mentioned there about it being a business. And when I think of the likes of this particular podcast, I like to think of me as the creative artsy one and Emer as the hard-hitting business one.
The good-looking one, I suppose, really, isn't it?
The good-looking one as well, the good-looking one. But we had a chat beforehand, and Emer brought up a great point about some of your plays being sold. I mean, how do you even sell a play?
So the play, the Lightning play, got transferred to London, and a lot of famous people came to see the play, and I told you I didn't really care about reviews. I put myself out there. And The Guardian gave us a 5-star review, and a few famous people. This before social media was really a big thing, I think. And I think Martine McCutcheon from Love Actually tweeted about it, and she met the cast backstage. Amy Winehouse people came to see the play, and it kind of just snowrolled that there was this play that was, you know, a bit out there, was a bit, you know, bit funny, was a bit, you know, all over the place. And we sold out the rest of the run. And then a few people in the film industry, like producers, were ringing up the venue asking to see me or to meet me. And I just thought they were, you know, they wanted something else rather than just to take me out for a drink, if you know what I'm talking about. You get me? I was like, yeah, talk to my agent if you want to, you know, take me to Hollywood, give up. You know what I mean? I'm not that stupid. In this business, you have to have thick skin and you have to know who not to go into a room with, you know? And then my agent was like, no, like the guys you told to F off, they really want to meet you. And I was like, oh, okay. Oh, reverse here. My agent's like, don't tell these people to F off again. And they took me out for dinner and they just said, yeah, we want to buy the rights of your play and pay you very well for it. And it was such a surreal moment in my life to think that a group of people who put on a show in the Samuel Beckett and a group of 16 players, and to be sitting here in this penthouse, suite in some private club in London, and then all of a sudden you're signing a film contract, and it was surreal, and it was a really great lesson to learn. I thought once I signed that piece of paper that I like my life was made. Like financially, I could live off that for the rest of my life. And I went a bit mental at the time, I think, looking back, and I've got no regrets because I had a lot of fun. But the idea was I didn't realise the business of it, why people invest in films, the tax implications, the tax breaks. And I was like, whoa, okay. I was truly about the craft. I was truly about the art form. I had no idea about the business. I had no idea about potential, how much money people could, invest or to get a tax break. And then I sat back and went, wow, this is a business. This is a multi-pound business around the world.
Did that turn you off the whole creative side of it?
Yeah, I did, because at the time, a friend of mine who passed away in front of me, we were walking to the Old Vic, the Pit Bar it was called, and I was doing a show in the West End at the time as an actor, and he died in front of me and my friends.
Jesus.
And so I had the film contract, pressure from producers, delivering deadlines, and then someone who was only 21 who wanted to be an actor died in front of me and my friends.
Wow.
And I still had to do a show that night. So I kind of really went into a dark place very fast. And there's no emotion in business. It was just business. And the whole play my bedsit window, because I'm very honest about the highs and the lows. So I was thrown into an industry, in the film industry, which I knew nothing about. I'm very blessed that I'm a very young playwright to sell ideas to the big studios, and I've made money from that. But it made me hardened. It made me learn the business more, and it's made me, I think, a better screenwriter and producer going forward. Now I'm doing a 5-year plan on 2 screenplays with an amazing writing partner in Frank Allen, who's 30 years my senior, and we've just collaborated together. I found someone who matches my moral compass, but also we've got 2 different writing styles, and we have a really exciting path for the next 5 years. Shoot back to 2011 when I signed my first big film deal. I thought that was it, that feeling of I've made it, but you never really do make it. Everything is just about the next gig, and that's what I've learned. And I always say to people out there, if you're chasing the West End dream or the Broadway dream, I'll never forget my mother a few of my parents over to see this show I was doing in the West End. My mother said to me, "You don't look happy, son." And I said, "It's just a gig." I was chasing this dream to be a West End actor. And when I got there, it was just a gig. And then I realised, I think the reason why I'm so strong now, where I am in my life, it's the people who I have around me, the people who I work with. And I've got a crew of people who I would do anything for, and vice versa, because we believe in each other. And when you have that tight unity and confidence in your own ability, that's when the game changes. And that's when, I really do feel sorry for artists out there who get fooled by these, like cockroaches, I call them. They just abuse people's vulnerability, and they have no real talent. They're just con artists.
In order to start off in your career, especially in acting and playwright and all of that various different, the arts world, it can cost quite a lot of money. So how do you fund it?
Yeah, so look, I learned the entrepreneur. My sister's in business, my father's in business, and my brother's in business. And the one thing they said to me was that once you're going to go into this field, we'll support you 100%, but you have to adapt. And that's what I did. I approached the arts as a business. So I found out how I could utilize my gifts or my skill sets in a world that was outside the arts and still be creative. So a meeting was set up with me and a guy called Paul Fitzpatrick, who owned the Fitzpatrick Hotel Group. So he was the Morgan and the Beacon. I came in and had a meeting with him, and he wanted to put on events and shows and live theatrical performances throughout all his hotels. And I got the contract, first kind of contract like that. And we worked together then for, I think, 3 years. And that funded my lifestyle as to be able to put on plays and shows. So as much I was chasing a gig and acting this or producing this or writing that, working with Paul and that group was a constant invoice for 3 years. And that's what kind of funded the start of the kind of playwright journey. And then I worked with MCD in Battle of the Bands, came together with a Battle of the Bands concept, and the winning band got to play auction, I think was in 2008. So I use creativity and my background as a producer as putting a show together as a play. And I took that skill set and I used that. Everything I did had to be creative. So my love of the hospitality industry, starting out collecting glasses, to running bars, to thinking hospitality groups need creative content, they need ideas. And then I stem it back to that blank page. I can always write a blank page as a playwright. So everything I do now, it's all starts with a blank page, where it's a commission for funding or it's a showcase festival event. And that's how I create that kind of business brain of not just the playwright actor, but I'm charging for the pen and paper. I'm charging for my ideas now. My ideas that I didn't have confidence now. But when I sold my first idea to a film company, I then realized, okay, ideas can make money. And that's when people like this try and tell you that they don't make money. But they do, creative content. What they don't tell you out there, for anyone out there who's selling ideas, what you need is a solicitor who specializes in intellectual property and how important that is and how much money you can make. Oh, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Not just any solicitor.
Yeah, a producer is not an entertainment solicitor. So how important your idea is. Someone's going to get you to sign a piece of paper. They want to have the characters, the cartoon, the children's book, the fridge magnet, anything that they can make money off with the idea. So if a young writer and someone's waving a check at 10 grand, oh, happy days, I'll sign here. And then meanwhile, they have a children's book, an animation, they've got merchandise. So they could literally expand that idea into a whole range of characters that you had nothing about. They don't want to tell you to get a solicitor or because they know they'll have solicitors. They'll have a team of solicitors. You know, contracts are about this thick. But when you're starting out, they're like, hey, kid, we'll make you a star. Sign here. Here's 10 grand. Happy days. Whoopity-woo-da. And you're like, oh, wow. And you could get, distracted by the flashing lights. And then you realize, no, ideas mean money. And that's when...
Yeah, so did you...
Emer, we need a solicitor.
We need a solicitor. So when you were starting off and when you sold your first play, you obviously were not wet behind the ears then. So you had all your ducks in a row there.
I tell you what I did was I lied and I said that Ozzy Kilkenny, who's an amazing accountant, was my solicitor. And my dad played Gaelic with Ozzy. And I lied in the meeting. And then I rang my dad and said, can you get me Ozzy's number? And he said, why? I said, because I lied. And he said, tell Ozzy the truth. And so I did. I told Ozzy I was in this meeting, and Ozzy was one of the founding members of Ardmore Studios. And Ozzy came in and negotiated a great deal for me. And they were a bit taken back when they found out that it wasn't just little old me here signing the film contract. And I got a really good deal and I was looked after. But if it wasn't for Ozzy, I would have been screwed over.
That's amazing. So are you currently living it up in a penthouse apartment with gold-plated windows and the whole lot?
Are you having a laugh? You're only good as your last paycheck. I lost
He did just say, the hotels were sold and funded his lifestyle.
Yeah, Paul's lifestyle. I when I was creating ideas for him, I was I was getting paycheck by paycheck and I was having a good time, let me say. No. The arts is a very tightrope, should they say? But when checks come in now, I just don't go on the lash for 3 weeks.
So you don't go to your yacht?
No. Yeah, my yacht, which is a dinghy.
So I like to get rowing into every episode for Emer's behalf.
Thank you, Johnny.
There's nothing like that. Look, I'm a Fingal lad, so I love living by the sea.
What do you want to do next? What's your next big thing? Because I know things were about to hit the Broadway. What's the term? Hit the boards.
My next thing is it's the 5-year strategy. So it's of 2 screenplays. One is my version of A Bullet from the Blue, which I never sold my life rights, so I own the life rights to the idea that I sold. I always wanted to tell this story. So I teamed up with Frank. We wrote a
So,
screen.
sorry, just to interrupt you for people that don't understand, what's the life rights?
So do you know when you saw In the Name of a Father, right?
Yes.
And they used the real name, right? I've sold ideas in the past where my life rights is my life rights. I haven't sold that. I haven't sold my name for people to use in the thing. So I could get to tell my story about my journey and the story that I wanted to tell. So my goal is literally a 5-year plan, 2 screenplays, 2 short films, a children's book, and a new play. That's in my head now that I've got. I've collaborated with Stephen Farrell on a thing called Johnny Lightning, and it's celebrating the relationship between a Celtic mother and their son through Celtic mythology. And it's for I've always wanted to write a children's book, and he's doing the illustrations. Teamed up with Frank Allen to write 2 screenplays, and then my own play, Back in the Parish, which is about returning home. And that's I want to soak up learning as a producer in the world of film. That's what I really want to learn. That my goal is to produce, to be involved in 2 of my ideas as the kind of, let's say, co-producer and writer, because I have a vision of what 2 films that I want to make. One is my version of The Lightning Story, and 2 incredible people about Michael Joseph O'Reilly, should I say, and Nanny O'Reilly. She was the vice president of the Cumann na mBan, and he was the co-founder of the Irish Volunteers. And we start writing that in September. So I've got a 5-year plan to make 2 feature films on an indie budget, as well as the play and 2 short films and the children's book. That's my ultimate goal, as well as being in and out of work.
And you mentioned a few times, you talked about the 1916 centenary celebrations, and which were amazing, by the way. I thought that whole production from every element was just top class. So are you involved historically? Do you like his history?
I love history. I love history, and I wanted to. So connection is my godmother is a woman called Iseult O'Reilly, and her grandfather was Michael Joseph O'Reilly, and her father was Aegon O'Reilly, who would sit me on his lap and tell me stories about his father. He was only 11-year-old when his father was murdered by the British Empire, and he told me all these tales and stories. And Iseult, my godmother's brother, was a guy called Ronan O'Reilly, who founded Radio Caroline. Wow. That transformed radio for people. So the O'Reillys were incredible people, incredible visionaries. And these two people, Nanny and Michael, were highly successful, wealthy, but they chose Ireland, and they chose freedom and the right for everyone to have the right to have an education, to have a voice. And to me, he's not spoken about in the same caliber as Collins or as Connolly, but he's respected by everybody. And I got to have every letter that he wrote to people. And I got to immerse myself, thanks to Ray Yates and Dublin City Council, to tell this tale, to tell this story, tell these 2 people. Like the day that he came back to cancel the Rising, when the house that he bought is still there, 40 Herbert Park, he got a knock on his door from Owen McNeill to say, "We need you, the Rising's happening." And he left his wife, who was 6 months pregnant and had 3 kids. And she knew that she'd never see him again, but she wanted him to go. And to look back into history, Arthur Griffin was banned from her household because she called him a coward. That she said that my husband went into battle for you and you were nowhere to be seen. Never step foot in my door front ever again. And I just thought, Nanny, I call it the unsung hero because they're both unsung heroes. But what a woman to be 6 months pregnant with her children, looking at their father, knowing that they'll never see him again, knowing they were going into a battle they were going to lose, but they had a love for Ireland and freedom, for that right to have the right that I had in education, that have a voice. And so that these 2 people that after the Lightning film, because I'm telling my version of the film, but with O'Reilly and Nanny, I love these 2 people. I was fascinated by them. And I think the play was just a love story about what these 2 crazy characters got up to. And even today, I'm part of Hands Around Moore Street, the Save the Moore Street campaign. Been in and out of court with so many other campaigners. And it's a disgrace what they're doing. A piece of history. You wouldn't turn down the Anne Frank. It annoys me. I won't even, it's like Wood Quay all over again, but I was too young to understand Wood Quay. But, Moore Street should be saved as a historical platform for people to walk down and realize that these weren't soldiers, these were actors, playwrights, poets, teachers. These were people who had a vision for Ireland. And as a writer, I believe the greatest ever piece of literature ever to come out of this country was the Proclamation. because it was about equality and it's about of everyone. And you read that, what these people believed in. And to me, as a playwright, as a poet, as somebody, I don't want to walk down Moore Street and say, here's Dunkin' Donuts. This is where O'Reilly died, dying on a street for 27 hours. But you know what? Next door is a Top Man. Do we need another supermarket? But anyway,
You're so passionate. I love that. You're really, really passionate, and I can't wait to see it or read it, because if you can communicate some of that passion that you have in terms of talking to us here in this podcast, what's the film going to be like? What's the piece of theatre going to be like? What's the piece of writing going to be like?
I'll even tell you what the opening of the film is. You got to understand that, you know, the Rising was happening. He went around and he had a car, by the way. O'Reilly had a car. You got to think of the wealth that this man had back in those days. He had his own car. He went around the whole of the nation to cancel the Rising. He doesn't even sleep, and he gets a knock on his doorstep to say, we need you. And he went with his sister in his car, and they got to Liberty Hall. And Connolly asked O'Reilly, could they use his car for the weapons? And he said, you'll have to ask my sister, because she has to walk home. And she hated Pierce. So she shouts at Pierce across this packed room, and everyone was fearful of her. But his car was burnt outside the GPO. And anyway, but that's the open. The open of me is this man traveling through the room, telling everyone that it's cancelled. And then he gets a knock on his door, and his wife, who's holding their child, their unborn child. And she knows that once he leaves that door, he ain't coming back. And I just think that's why she's my unsung hero. If you go to the Winds Hotel and have a drink off O'Connell Street, there's 2 plaques, one dedicated to the co-founder of the Irish Volunteers and one dedicated to the vice president of the Cumann Man, husband and wife, 2 game changers of Irish history and politics.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, that's fascinating. And we've got so much history in this city, and we've got so much history in this country. It's just amazing. Phenomenal.
I'll leave with this. A friend of mine's a barrister in London. He used to drink in my pub, and we had a row on social media the other day. I call Roger Casement a hero, a guy who was born in Ireland, but also fought for the British Empire and was awarded for his bravery and his medals. But he decided to train the Irish and fight with the Irish because of a humanitarian thing. He saw what happened in the Congo, but he saw what happened to the Irish was a lot worse, and he helped fight them. So he was calling Roger Casement a traitor, and I said, no, he's a hero. And I said, you got to understand, his diary is there for you to read. You see a guy who was awarded valor in the British Empire, but this was a man who saw something with the Irish people and wanted to give back. So I always think there's always 3 sides to every story, but the diaries are there, people's tales of Dublin, and that's why I talk about voice. Their voices are still there to hear, to inspire me, to inspire everybody. But yeah, I love history. History is amazing. Yeah.
So much passion.
I feel like such a turncoat moving to England.
Not at all. England gave me my break.
Exactly.
England gave me my opportunity. I didn't get it over here. I took the crown. I took the crown, and I felt good.
A couple of years ago, we both sang on a charity Christmas single.
Oh my God.
Do you want to give us a few bars?
I'm so proud of that. I always wanted to be involved in the Christmas song.
So did I.
We were on the Saturday night show together and the Wimble. Yeah. What was it called?
Maybe This Christmas.
Maybe This Christmas.
I was standing beside Mary Black. I thought, I know her. I'll stand there. And, the camera kept coming on to me during the music video. And
you shot the music video? Yeah. Emer, I'll tell you, an artist will do anything to get his name out there. That's the truth. That's what we were laughing at. We were involved in a Christmas top 10 hit. That's on our CV. That's on my CV for life.
Number 6 in the charts.
Number 6. There you go. I knew the disc jockey would get it.
That's very good. Now I think I'd be very proud of that if I was involved in something like that. Well done.
But yeah, that's hilarious. Maybe This Christmas. I do remember using up the green room though and getting fairly tanked. I do remember that.
That was easy to do. Emer, we've done that a few times as well.
Yes.
And
backstage
very easy
in the
to
green
get
room
tanked in RTE.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh.
I got caught. Well, I wouldn't say I got caught. It was brilliant to be caught. But with Joe Duffy telling me the story about he was writing the book at the time, The Children of the
1916.
Yeah. Children of the Revolution, I think it's actually what it's called. We got chatting about that, and I was like, oh my God, I was like entrenched in history, and I was like, this is amazing. He'd only just started it at the time. But yeah, green rooms are great crack.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen.
You never know.
Or you never know who's watching.
Never know who's watching either. Yeah, I think we were at some Eurovision special thing one time, Tony, and it must have been about 5:00 in the morning. We left RT at.
Tony, I'm going to write this down. I might put that Christmas thing in the new play. I just think that's hilarious. Like this character
My acting debut awaits.
No, this guy comes back from Dublin and he just forget, like, you know, of all the things from social welfare to having a number one Christmas single. Tony, thank you. Christmas 2000. It's in there. Yeah.
Emer, quickly get that solicitor. That's my creative right.
Where's that intellectual property again?
That's just a nod of approval. That one. Brilliant. Oh, that's made my really day. Cool. Thank you, Tony. That's made my day.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've learned so much about playwriting and your story and where you've come from, and fair play to you. How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
35 now.
You're 35, so only?
Yeah, 35.
Only a chung one.
You're not.
Yeah, 35.
You look like you're 22.
Thank you very much. I take whatever I'm given. You know what I mean?
No, but that's so your 5-year plan now. This is what you're going to focus on. Obviously, not a lot of room at the moment with the likes of COVID-19 for stuff happening.
I hate to tell people, but there will be no festivals in 2021. I could tell you out now.
Do you think?
100%. With no vaccine. Let's say the vaccine comes out next summer and you've got 70,000 people in a field. Now, you can have gigs and events slowly coming through, but I don't see even film festivals. I just don't see theatres. If you look at West End or Broadway, I'd say 75% of their ticket sales is done by tourism. There is no tourism. So we can say that West End and Broadway will come back open again.
Slowly.
But who's going to be buying tickets? Yeah. So like to me, writing. I'm just developing, because a huge chunk of my financial revenue is just out the door. No live shows, no festivals, no events, no gigs, nothing. But I'm not. The world. There's a lot more worse things happening in this world right now, but you just have to, as you said earlier on, adapt. You know what I mean?
And David, I just have one really interesting question to ask. Well, it's not interesting to me. If you write an amazing play again, and somebody knocks on the door, or do you call the person back up who you sold the play to and say, "Hey, I've actually written another one. Do you want to have a look?" Or how does that work?
So what happens is now. So I've sold 3, and now I don't want to sell my ideas anymore. I'm confident enough to say with the right team, I can make my ideas with the right team. So I'm changing from selling ideas to, I started off doing a small short. I picked up a few. I started off from a 1-minute short film to a 10-minute short film to being involved in another feature film from the back end to now being, okay, this is my writing partner. This is the projects that we have. This is the slate. Learn the business, learn the tax break, learn building the right people together. So that's my focus. I've started to slowly engage myself from the grassroots up to understanding how this works. Now, I'm completely foolish, fools, because, I should get a real job. But
a lot of parents get worried, especially for kids who decide they want to be an actor or they want to go down that side of things. They say, have something to fall back on.
Yeah, I would say to everybody have something to fall back on, okay? Because some people haven't got that business acumen in them. But if you would have told me that when I was 18, I told you to go screw yourself. I was going to chase this dream. So there's a level of always have a plan B, because the art isn't sustainable. Without funding, we don't survive, that kind of way. And it took me years before I got into that funding, just small to build up slowly. But for everybody listening, you always have a plan B. But you know what? If you really want something, you got to fight for it, and you got to get down on your hands and knees and start digging, because you know what? If you're focused and you believe in what you're selling, I'm telling you, no stopping you. Because if someone said that to me when I was 18, I'd say, screw you. I'm going to do it. Now, I've learned a lot throughout the years. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've got no regrets. You can't have regrets. You can look back and go, oh, bad decision. Shouldn't have worked with that person. I'll never work with that person again. Oh, contract should have been better. But no regrets. Kind of way. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. I'm a lifer. I love helping others. I love making money, and I love creating art.
It's a really great story, and I love the fact that it's almost like a rags to riches, but it's built upon real gut and determination to succeed at the same time. Because if you didn't have it, it would be so easy, I'm sure, at many different times to just give up.
Emer, I'm not going to sit here and to you, Tony, and tell you that it's been all rosy. I never do that in my life. I celebrate the highs and I celebrate the lows. I'll tell you one story. Going back into the social welfare, when I had a film contract and a contract, how much I got paid. And he looked at me and he said, gee, you screwed up, didn't you?
Lovely.
I had to go, Yeah, I did, didn't I? But there was that moment of I am who I am. I celebrate the highs and the lows. And right now I'm on a high. But you know what? I could be on a low very soon. But the idea is cannot pretend to the situation of what's out there. And right now, things have just fallen into place through hard work, meeting the right people, learning from mistakes. And you know what? Who knows what's going to... Look, I should be on tour. I should be in Vegas right now. I should be performing in Vegas right now with my debut tour of America and Canada. It took me 10 years to get to that moment, be funded by Cultural Ireland, to perform in every Irish Arts Centre, 26 venue tour. And then just before that, Trump announces, boom, we announce lockdown. And I went... Everything I had built towards that was just taken away from me. And I thought, okay, this is you just have to sit back, take time, reflect, and then go, okay, what's next? There's bigger, important things in the world that are happening now. And
will that come back though? Will that tour come back at a future date?
Yeah, but it's like so I was supposed to come back at the end of September to start my tour again. And then that's been cancelled. Will it be this year? Will it be next year? There's no vaccine. Can you fit 600 people in the room to see a show? Would they feel comfortable in a cultural Irish Arts Centre? These are all, would I be insured by travel insurance to go away for COVID-19 if I was on tour to get sick? Do the people who sponsor me, will they still be exec next year? Like Hertz have just gone. So we don't know what is.
It's all up in the air.
Yeah.
It is all.
I have my pen, I have my paper, and we had a top 10 Christmas #1. That was one of my dictates.
That's all that matters.
And I could just see Emer now gun running down the Liffey, dealing with the Germans in 1916, gun running for the Germans.
You give me a call.
That was acting. That wasn't racial. That was acting. That was just my.
You give me a call anytime, David, and I'll gun run for you. No bother at all.
That's the tag of all tags. Gun running than Kevin Spacey and a Christmas #1. I tell you, bingo.
I'll put Mary Lou in the bow, and I'm sure we'll get somebody else, and we'll head off.
That's the promo, don't it?
That is brilliant. That is drum roll, please.
Fair play.
Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up, and I hope you don't have to wait too long before you can release those creative juices and have that paper full of ink.
And look, all I'll say to you is people like you who create platforms like this, who give me an opportunity to talk about my craft, what I've been through, and to promote my projects. Without you, the wheels don't turn and people don't know what we're talking about. So thank you for your time. I know how fucking hard this is to put a show like this together. The work that goes into creating the sound, the platform, the vision. So thank you for being a part of your venture, because you've got a lovely connection between the two of you. I don't know your actual connection as in the friendship, how long you know each other, but you've got a lovely bond that actually works well. And I'm really proud to be on the show. I will tweet it and share it, and thank you for letting me be part of this, because I got to book something in my diary. I look everything into I do now as a gig, so thank you, because it was like, oh, my diary is being used again.
Let's cry here.
That's
amazing.
Thank you.
I know, that's lovely. Thank you very much, and it was absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I've learned so much. You're deadly.
All right.
Good luck.
Look after yourself. He's blading rides. Good luck. Up to Paris.
Good luck.
See
Thanks a million. Tony, that was a really, really great interview.
You weren't too, how would I say it without insulting you, too pushed initially?
Yeah, well, like I am into a little bit of theatre, and I am into bits and bobs in terms of the art world, but I wouldn't consider myself.
You have to really be in the mood for it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be really artsy-fartsy. Do you know what I mean? And so when you suggested that we interview David, I was like, oh, great.
I bet you read the Sunday Independent every week.
Why? Because you see it in the background here, is it? The Sunday Business Post, which is now the Business Post, and the Sunday Independent. Yeah, I do. But, I guess for me, from my perspective, I wasn't expecting what we actually got from David. And that was for me to learn about his craft and how he puts things together. And also, I think I really liked the guy. Genuinely,
very likable.
By the end of the interview, I thought I really got to know him, and I got to know a little bit more about his genre of work. I think this guy is going to be a superstar in the future. I know he's doing already extremely well for himself, but I think in the future he's going to be definitely one to watch.
It's almost like, that Stockholm syndrome you get. Obviously, we don't know anything about it. When if someone's kidnapped and then they, become friends with their kidnappers. It's almost like the interview version of that we want to be friends with our guests.
Yeah.
Why do you make me sound like a
I
weirdo?
know. I'm only joking. Yeah. No, you're right. No, you're right. And look, that's what the Kish podcast is all about. It is about just having a chat and like getting to know somebody and getting to know their story. So yes, you're 100% right there. I was only just joking by that little long pause. But yeah, no, I felt like I really got to know David, and I think that he has such an amazing story. I mean, being struck by lightning, I did want to ask him after he told me he got struck by lightning, and then all the rest of the stuff that happened after. I was going to say to him, "Did you ever do the lotto?" Because if he had this,
just say it's lucky.
Like Jesus, like the statistic about being struck by lightning versus maybe winning the lotto, there might be some type of, I don't know.
I'm going to stand outside with an umbrella from now on.
Jesus, don't be doing that. He was in bits, the poor devil.
I know.
Yeah.
I jest.
Yeah. Real nice guy. Real nice guy.
But it's been an interesting week here in the last 7 days. I mean, we've had gorgeous weather. Look what it's done to your lovely eyes.
So what Tony is referring to, I went out for a cycle today and I had sunglasses on me and it was 20 odd degrees. And I got slightly burnt in my face, even though I did have factor 30 on my face and all over my body.
Slightly, says Mrs. Beetroot.
Slightly. So so the weather has been great. It's great for outdoor activities, but Lord bless us tonight. Went for a sea swim this morning in Dalkey, and
was that within your 5 kilometre zone?
Give or take. Yeah, the amount of people out around Dunleary and Sandy Cove and in Dalkey, I was like, where are you all going? But then I realised
same place as you.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway.
Like the Gardaí have had to shut down beaches, arrest people, cordon off, parks and everything.
Yeah, I know all about the Gardaí. I got stopped by one today.
While on your bike?
No, this is earlier on in my car.
All right.
Yeah.
For anyone who's not experienced that, what happens?
Oh, the little martyr there sitting ahead of me. So I happened to go through an amber light turning red.
Now we're not putting illegal stuff on this podcast. I'm going to have to click explicit.
No, but anyway, right. And this is the Condon's truth.
Yeah.
All the way out to Dalkey, I had red lights, right?
Is it that N11 stretch?
In 11 and then over and then on to, kind of the Sandy Cove, or not Sandy Cove, onto Sea Point there and blah, blah, blah. Right? So every single set of traffic lights they were red. But anyway, I was coming back from Dalkey and I was on the home stretch, literally on the N11, about to head back towards where I live. A stone's throw, less than 5 kilometres. Happy days. Home in a minute. And then I went through a set of traffic lights and they were just turning like amber stroke red. I thought I was all right. I never realised there was a squad car right behind me. I drove through them. Woo, woo, woo. Pulled me over. I was like, oh, merciful hour. And then, of course, he comes up to the window.
He saw your eyes and he gave you a warning.
And he was a country guard and all. Imagine treating another fellow country person like this. The cheek of him. So anyway, he said, how are you going on? I said, grand. Do you know what you done there? I was like, yes, I went through an amber light. Yes, you did. You could have caused an accident. And he said the worst thing about all of this, I was in your rear view mirror and you never even realized that I was behind you. So you weren't observing either, were you? I was like,
many people after they pass their test actually stick to
seriously, that? Seriously, I tell you now, I would be like an octopus. Octopus.
An octopus?
An octopus looking in my mirrors all the time. But you know what? I was so fed up after going through red light after, not obviously going through red light after red light. I swear to God, Garda. That I was just like, oh God, just another one. But anyway, then he said, he was so particular. He said, have you got your license with you? And honest to God, above all the days, I didn't have my license with me because it was in my wallet and I didn't bother bringing my wallet because I was going for a sea swim.
Yeah.
And he goes, it's the law to carry your license. And I said, I do. Thanks. I'm really sorry, but I don't have it with me. And he goes, right, yeah. So he took down all my insurance credentials. Now, you know the length of your insurance. On your insurance disc, you've got your policy number,
Right.
which is a long ass number. He took all of that down. Took obviously my name, my date of birth, my address. Oh, anyway, then he was like, well, don't do that again. You obviously, we're oblivious to what was going on around you. So I wasn't going to argue it. I was going to say...
You were concentrating on the lights.
Yeah, which I obviously clearly wasn't observing. But anyway, so I was like, oh, just let me off. I was like, don't want to lecture. So anyway, I was like, go on now, be careful now and cop yourself on. I was like, grand.
Do you find?
Oh, I did, yeah. 3 feckin' points.
Oh my God.
3 points and a fixed charge notice of €80.
Well, we're setting up
I gave him the
a
wrong
just giving page.
I gave him the wrong address, so he'll be a long time trying to find me. I'm only joking. No,
yeah. Now, normally I'd normally edit Emer's rants, but this one, I'm just leaving it in this week.
Thanks, T.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, no, this was just
educational.
Do you know what? I was on my mind all day. I was like, for God's sake, like, why couldn't he just leave me alone? Like, why? I mean, we're in the middle of
his job.
Because we're in the middle of a pandemic, and God's sake, like, it happens from time to time that people aren't. I was paying attention. If a fox ran out, or a child ran out, or somebody, I'd be fine.
A fox.
I'd stop. But anyway, I obviously just didn't check my rearview mirror. And the thing about it is, Tony, he did not come from the same area I came from. So I reckon he came out of a little side road thinking he was all high and mighty with his badge.
Yeah. Saw this massive Jeep of a car and thought, I'm going to get her.
Bitch.
Yeah.
Put her over. Put her over. Look at her driving that car thinking she's all greater and holier than
make
now.
Her bank holiday.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. What are you doing? I actually was laughing on a final note.
Oh, there's more. Sorry.
No, just in a final note on this, right? I thought this was actually quite funny in my head at the time. Last week I went for a walk in Clontarf, well within my 5k. And anyway, there was a guard at checkpoint. I was walking now, and I was going back down the hill, and the guard was stopping somebody, and he was looking in the window, and he goes, "Now I have to ask you, where you come from and where you going?" And I felt like shouting over and going, "Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from?"
Oh dear. I think we should
edit that one out.
No, I'm leaving that in too. Anyway, from the hottest county in Ireland, in Roscommon, at 26 degrees.
Yeah.
We are back, of course, next week with another great show, and we've man of the business cloth next week.
Yes, so we have Pat Phelan, who is a well-known Irish entrepreneur.
Your new multi-billion-dollar friend.
Yes, indeed. Sold Trustev company for quite a significant few bob. Before that, he was with Cubic Telecom and a few other bits and bobs. So we're going to be learning about how he came to his fortunes and what does he think of the COVID-19 pandemic and in terms of business, the response from government in terms of business and so on. So,
and he's great
really
on Twitter.
Guy. He's a great guy on Twitter, yeah. And he's very vocal as well. He just says it as it is. And I really admire people that just says it as it is.
Absolutely. I'm saying it as it is now. That's it from us this week. Have yourself a great week. If you want to find out more about the Kish Podcast,
thekishpodcast.com. That's KISH, or you can find us on Instagram or Facebook and so on. Again, by just searching the Kish Podcast.
Make sure you get some sort of, tinted moisturizer to keep your eyes in balance with the rest of your face.
Get the aloe vera on anyway first. So,
absolutely. Yeah. Take care of yourself.
Tony, mind yourself down there in Roscommon land.
And you mind yourself across there in Dublin land.
Slán Banach.